You know what the problem with humans is? They look soft. I mean, genuinely, pathetically soft. No exoskeleton, no natural armor plating, no venom sacs, nothing. Just this weird, squishy exterior wrapped around bones that break if you look at them wrong. That is what I thought. Anyway, before I took a job at Detention Complex 7, a maximum security facility floating in the outer reaches. The pay was exceptional, the benefits were outstanding, and the work seemed simple enough. Keep the dangerous ones locked up, make sure they do not kill each other, collect my credits. Easy, right? Wrong. So incredibly, spectacularly wrong. My name is Vorkath, and I am what you would call a Craxian. We are big, we are mean, and we have scales that can deflect plasma rounds. We have been the muscle of the Galactic Coalition for 3 centuries. When someone needs intimidation, they call us. When someone needs a problem removed with extreme prejudice, they call us. We are very, very good at what we do. So when I got assigned to guard duty at Complex 7, I figured it would be another boring rotation. Watch the prisoners, break up the occasional fight, file reports, standard procedure. Then I met Marcus. The human arrived on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were usually quiet, and this particular Tuesday was about to become anything but. The transport shuttle docked at Bay 4, and I was part of the receiving detail. Standard protocol. We line up, we look intimidating, we make sure the new arrivals understand exactly where they stand in the pecking order. The shuttle door hissed open, and out walked a Vrelian cartel boss, a Thexian arms dealer, and this tiny human child. I am not exaggerating when I say, child. The human could not have been more than 7 or 8 solar cycles old. Short, maybe 1.2 meters tall, with brown hair that stuck up in odd directions and these enormous eyes that seemed to take in everything. He was wearing a faded blue jumpsuit that was 3 sizes too big, and he was clutching a small, worn stuffed animal. Some kind of earth creature, brown and fuzzy. What in the 7 hells? I muttered to my partner, Grelnak. Why is there a juvenile here? Grelnak, who had been doing this job for twice as long as me, just shrugged his massive shoulders. Read the file. The kid is here for observation. Something about an incident on Relay Station Omega. An incident? Yeah, apparently, things got messy. I pulled up the file on my datapad while the processing team handled the new arrivals. Marcus Reeves, age 8, human. Origin, Earth Colony, New Helena. Reason for detention, and there it was. Suspected involvement in the destruction of an entire wing of Relay Station Omega, resulting in 47 casualties. I looked at the kid again. He was currently focused on his stuffed animal, making it hop along the processing bench while he waited his turn. He looked about as dangerous as a fluffy and dust bunny. This has to be a mistake, I said. Grelnak made a sound that might have been a laugh. Better hope not. This facility has a reputation to maintain. The processing took 3 hours. By the time we got Marcus settled into his cell, the day shift was almost over. His cell was in Block D, which housed the medium security prisoners. The kid did not complain, did not cry, did not even seem particularly bothered by the whole situation. He just walked into the cell, placed his stuffed animal carefully on the thin mattress, and sat down. You need anything, kid? I asked, trying to sound less terrifying than usual. Marcus looked up at me with those big eyes. Do you have any honey? Honey? Yeah. For snacks. I really like honey. I glanced at Grelnak, who looked just as confused as I felt. I will see what I can do. Thanks, Mr. Vorkath, I blinked. How did you know my name? He pointed at my chest plate where my identification badge was clipped. It says so right there. Right, of course, smart kid. The first week passed without incident. Marcus kept to himself mostly, spent his time in the recreation area drawing pictures with the art supplies we had grudgingly provided. The other prisoners left him alone, partly because attacking a child carried severe penalties, even in a place like this, but mostly because there was something about the kid that made everyone nervous. I could not quite put my finger on it. He was polite, quiet, did everything he was told. But sometimes, when I was doing my rounds, I would catch him watching things with an intensity that seemed wrong for someone his age. Then there was Warden Krell. If you want to understand what happened at Complex 7, you need to understand Krell. He was a Dravosian, which meant he was tall, cruel, and convinced of his own superiority. He had run Complex 7 for 5 years with an iron fist and a complete disregard for anything resembling compassion. The prisoners feared him. The guards respected him, mostly out of terror. He was, in every sense of the word, a bastard. Krell had a particular way of establishing dominance. Once a month, he would choose a prisoner at random and make an example of them in front of everyone. Nothing that would leave permanent damage, mind you. The coalition had rules about that, but enough to remind everyone who was in charge. I was on duty in the main commons when it happened. It was week 2 of Marcus being at the facility. The commons were crowded, maybe 200 prisoners all eating their midday meal or socializing. I was standing near the south wall, watching everything with the bored attention of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. Krell walked in with his personal escort, 4 heavily armed Craxians who made even me look small. The room went quiet almost immediately. That was Krell's effect. He commanded attention just by existing. He walked through the commons slowly, letting his gaze sweep across the prisoners. This was his hunting ritual. Pick someone, anyone, and demonstrate power. I saw him pause when his eyes landed on Marcus. Oh no. The kid was sitting at a corner table by himself, eating what passed for food in this place, and occasionally feeding small pieces to his stuffed animal. He had not noticed Krell yet, or if he had, he did not care. Krell changed direction and headed straight for the kid's table. Every instinct I had screamed at me to intervene, but what could I do? Krell was the warden. He ran this place. If he wanted to intimidate a prisoner, that was his right, even if that prisoner was an 8-year-old human. Well, Krell said, his voice carrying across the now silent commons. What do we have here? Marcus looked up from his meal. Hello. You are the human child everyone has been talking about. Krell leaned down, bringing his face close to Marcus's, the one who supposedly destroyed part of a station. I did not destroy it, Marcus said calmly. Mr. Tibbs did. Krell glanced at the stuffed animal. Your toy? He is not a toy. He is my friend. The warden straightened up and laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. A friend. How adorable. Tell me, human, what kind of friend helps you kill 47 people? Mr. Tibbs is a honey badger, Marcus said, as if that explained everything. And those people were hurting the other kids at the station. We asked them to stop. They did not listen. Something in the kid's tone made my scales prickle. There was no emotion in his voice. No anger, no sadness, nothing. Just flat statement of fact. Krell did not notice. Or maybe he did not care. He reached out and grabbed the stuffed animal from the table. Hey, Marcus said quietly. Please give him back. Or what? Krell dangled the toy by one arm, holding it high above Marcus's head. What are you going to do about it, child? You should give him back, Marcus said. And now there was something in his voice. Something cold. Mr. Tibbs does not like being grabbed. I do. Not care what your toy likes. Then Krell did something I still have nightmares about. He threw the stuffed animal across the commons. It hit the far wall and fell to the floor in a crumpled heap. The silence in the room became absolute. I watched Marcus stand up slowly. He was still tiny, still looked completely harmless. But every prisoner in that common suddenly found somewhere else to be. They moved away from the tables, pressed themselves against the walls, some even back toward the exits. They knew. Somehow, they all knew. You should not have done that, Marcus whispered. Krell laughed again. What are you going to do about it, little human? Cry? Call for your mother? No, Marcus said, and his voice was still barely above a whisper. I am going to wake up, Mr. Tibbs. I want you to understand something. At this point, I thought the kid was having some kind of psychological break. Trauma response, maybe. Dissociation. Something that would explain why he was talking about his stuffed animal like it was real. Then the temperature in the commons dropped 10 degrees. I am not speaking metaphorically. The environmental systems registered the temperature change. Later, when we reviewed the footage, we could see frost forming on the metal surfaces. Actual frost. Marcus walked across the commons toward where Mr. Tibbs had landed. Every step seemed to echo despite the soft sound of his bare feet on the floor. When he reached the stuffed animal, he picked it up gently and held it close. I am sorry, he whispered to it. I tried to tell him. Then he said, Mr. Tibbs down on the floor and stepped back. For maybe 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then, Mr. Tibbs moved. It was subtle at first, just a twitch of one fuzzy arm. Then the head turned, slowly, until the button eyes were facing Krell. And those button eyes, I swear on everything I hold sacred, those button eyes started to glow. Not a bright glow, more like embers in a dying fire. But definitely, unmistakably, glowing. What in the name of? Grelnak started to say beside me. The stuffed animal stood up. Again, I know how this sounds. I know what you are thinking. But I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. The thing that had been a harmless child's toy seconds ago unfolded itself. Grew. Expanded. Fabric stretched and tore. Stuffing became muscle. Button eyes became real. Filled with an intelligence that was definitely not friendly. Within 10 seconds, there was a creature standing in the middle of the commons that defied all logic. It was roughly the size and shape of an earth honey badger, which I had looked up after Marcus mentioned it. But it was wrong in ways I still cannot fully articulate. Its fur seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Its claws were longer than my fingers and looked sharp enough to cut through our hull plating. And its eyes, those glowing ember eyes, were fixed directly on Warden Krell. Krell, to his credit, did not run immediately. He was a Dravasian, after all, and they are not known for cowardice. Instead, he drew his sidearm, a plasma pistol capable of dropping a charging Thraxian bull. "Stand down," he ordered, his voice only shaking slightly. Mr. Tibbs tilted his head, like he was considering the command. Then he made a sound. It started as a low growl, built into something that was part roar, part shriek, and ended in a noise that I can only describe as reality itself being offended. Then, he charged. What happened next took maybe 30 seconds, but it felt like hours. Krell fired his plasma pistol point blank at the creature. The bolt hit Mr. Tibbs square in the chest and did absolutely nothing. The creature did not even slow down. It hit Krell like a freight shuttle going full velocity and drove him backward into a support column hard enough to crack the metal. Krell's escort opened fire. 4 Craxian guards, armed with military-grade weapons, poured enough firepower into that creature to level a small building. Mr. Tibbs ignored all of it. He climbed up Krell's body, claws tearing through the warden's armor like it was made of tissue paper, and lunged for his throat. I should have done something. I was armed. I was trained. I was supposed to maintain order. But I was frozen. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get as far away from that thing as possible. Then Marcus spoke. "Mr. Tibbs," he said calmly, "that is enough." The creature stopped instantly. Its jaws were maybe 2 centimeters from Krell's throat. Krell, to his eternal shame, had wet himself. His eyes were wide with terror, and he was making small whimpering sounds. "Come back now," Marcus said. "We do not kill unless we have to." Mr. Tibbs released Krell and dropped back to the floor. The warden collapsed immediately, gasping for air. The creature padded across the commons back to Marcus, shrinking with every step. By the time it reached the boy, it was just a stuffed animal again. Worn, slightly torn, with button eyes that no longer glowed. Marcus picked it up and hugged it close. "Good job, Mr. Tibbs," he whispered. "You are such a good boy." Then he turned and looked at me. At me specifically, not at anyone else in the commons. "Can I go back to my cell now, Mr. Vorkath?" he asked. "I think Mr. Tibbs needs a nap." I nodded mutely. What else was I going to do? As Marcus walked past me toward the exit, he paused and looked up at me with those big, innocent eyes. "I tried to warn him," he said quietly. "Humans always warn people. We are nice like that, but nobody ever listens." Then he was gone, and I was left standing in a commons full of shocked prisoners and traumatized guards, with a warden who would spend the next week in the medical bay, recovering from what the official report would call a training accident. That was when I truly understood something that the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to learn. Humans are soft, that much is true. But soft does not mean weak, and it definitely, absolutely, does not mean safe. The facility went into lockdown for 3 days after what everyone was now calling the incident. Command did not know what to do with Marcus. They could not exactly throw him into solitary. He was 8 years old. But they also could not just let him wander around after what happened to Krell. The compromise was keeping him in his cell with supervised recreation time and around-the-clock monitoring. I got assigned as his primary guard. Lucky me. Why me? I asked Commander Thross, a Valerian who ran security operations. Thross looked at me with her 3 eyes, each one expressing a different level of exhaustion. Because the kid likes you, Vorkath. And more importantly, that thing he carries around has not tried to eat you yet. Consider it a promotion. Some promotion. Babysitting a human child and his reality-defying murder toy. The first day of my new assignment, I stood outside Marcus's cell trying to figure out what to say. Through the transparent barrier, I could see him sitting on his bunk, reading a datapad we had given him. Mr. Tibbs was propped up beside him, looking exactly like a normal, harmless stuffed animal. I knew better now. "Can I come in?" I asked through the intercom. Marcus looked up and smiled. "Sure, Mr. Vorkath." The barrier deactivated, and I stepped inside. The cell was small, maybe 3 meters by 4, with a bunk, a toilet facility, and a small desk. Marcus had decorated it with his drawings. They were actually pretty good. Pictures of earth animals, landscapes, a few of what I assumed were his family members. "How are you doing, kid?" I asked, settling my bulk onto the floor since the furniture was definitely not built for Craxians. "I am okay." He put down the datapad. "Is Warden Krell all right?" The question surprised me. "You are worried about him?" "A little." Mr. Tibbs did not mean to hurt him that badly. We just wanted him to stop being mean. I chose my next words carefully. "Marcus, what is Mr. Tibbs, exactly?" The kid picked up his stuffed animal and looked at it fondly. "He is a honey badger. My dad gave him to me when I was 4. Dad said honey badgers are special because they are small, but they do not care about being small. They fight things way bigger than them and usually win." "Right, but honey badgers are animals. Earth animals. They do not usually get up and walk around." Marcus nodded seriously. "That is true. Regular honey badgers do not. But Mr. Tibbs is not a regular honey badger anymore. What happened to him?" "We were living on Relay Station Omega. My parents worked there, doing research stuff I do not really understand. There were lots of families, lots of kids. It was nice." His expression darkened. "Then the pirates came. I had read about this in his file, but the official reports were sparse on details. The Carvex raiders. Yeah. They took over the station. Said they wanted the research data, and they would kill everyone if they did not get it. The grown-ups tried to fight, but the pirates were too strong. They locked all the kids in a cargo bay while they figured out what to do with us." Marcus hugged Mr. Tibbs tighter. I was scared. All the other kids were scared too. Some of them were crying. The pirates kept saying they were going to sell us if our parents did not cooperate. One of the pirates, this big Threxian guy, he came into the cargo bay and started hitting kids, just because he could. My scales prickled. I had heard of the Carvex raiders. Brutal, sadistic, with no moral boundaries whatsoever. The galaxy was a better place with them gone. I yelled at him to stop. Marcus continued. He laughed and hit me too. Knocked me down. Mr. Tibbs fell out of my hands when I hit the floor. I remember lying there, tasting blood, and I was so angry. Angrier than I had ever been. I remember thinking that I wished Mr. Tibbs was real, that he could protect us like Dad said honey badgers protect their homes. And then I felt something change. Like the air got heavy. Mr. Tibbs started moving. At first I thought I was seeing things because I hit my head. But then he got bigger, and the Threxian pirate started screaming. Marcus's voice remained eerily calm. Mr. Tibbs killed him. Then he killed the other pirates in the cargo bay. Then he broke down the door and killed the pirates outside. Then he kept going. 47 casualties, I said quietly. Mr. Tibbs does not like people who hurt kids. Once he starts protecting, he does not stop until the threat is gone. The station security tried to stop him, and he thought they were threats too. By the time I caught up and told him to stop, a whole section of the station was destroyed. I sat there processing this. So you can control it? Him? Sort of. He listens to me because he is my friend. But when he is protecting me, really protecting me, it is hard to make him stop. That is why I try to warn people. Like I warned Warden Krell. The galaxy needs to know about this, Marcus. About what humans can do. The kid shook his head. It is not all humans. Just me, I think. Something happened when I wished so hard for Mr. Tibbs to be real. Mom says I have what Earth people call an overactive imagination. Maybe I imagined so hard that reality decided to play along. That was a terrifying thought. A human child with the ability to make imaginary things real. But as I looked at Mr. Tibbs, sitting there with his button eyes and worn fur, I could not deny what I had seen. Over the next few weeks, things at Complex 7 changed. Warden Krell recovered physically, but something in him had broken. He stopped doing his monthly demonstrations. He stopped walking through the commons entirely. He filed his reports from his office and avoided Marcus like the kid carried a plague. The other prisoners treated Marcus with a weird mixture of respect and fear. Nobody bothered him. Nobody even looked at him wrong. Word had spread about what had happened, and in a facility full of the galaxy's worst criminals, the 8-year-old human had become the most feared resident. I spent a lot of time with Marcus during those weeks. He was a good kid, genuinely, smart, curious, kind even. He asked me about my homeworld, about Craxian culture, about what it was like being a guard. He told me about Earth, about his parents, about the books he liked to read. Sometimes I forgot I was guarding one of the most dangerous beings in the facility. Then I would see Mr. Tibbs and remember. The situation came to a head 5 weeks after the incident. A new prisoner arrived, a Zethian named Vorsh who had a reputation for being unkillable. He had survived 3 execution attempts, broken out of 2 maximum security facilities, and killed 17 guards during his criminal career. He was huge, even by Zethian standards, covered in scars and cybernetic enhancements, and he did not believe the stories about Marcus. I was not there when it started. I was on my meal break, eating in the guard cafeteria, when the alarms went off. Code red in the commons. I dropped my food and ran. By the time I got there, it was already chaos. Vorsh had Marcus pinned against a wall, one massive hand around the kid's throat. Mr. Tibbs was on the floor 3 meters away, apparently kicked there. Prisoners were pressed against the far walls, as far from the scene as possible. Guards were trying to get clear shots, but Vorsh was using Marcus as a shield. "Everyone stays back," Vorsh roared, "or I snap the human's neck." Commander Thross was trying to negotiate. "Put the child down, Vorsh. You do not want to do this. This little freak is the only reason you parasites have any power over us. Once he is dead, things go back to normal." I looked at Marcus. The kid's face was turning blue from lack of oxygen. His eyes were wide, but not with fear, with something else. Something that made my blood run cold. His lips moved, forming words without sound. "Tibbs, wake up." Oh no. The temperature dropped so fast that frost formed on my scales. The lights flickered. And Mr. Tibbs, lying on the floor where Vorsh had kicked him, began to change. This time was different. Worse. Mr. Tibbs did not just grow. He erupted. The transformation was violent, angry. The creature that emerged was twice as large as before, its fur bristling with what looked like dark energy, its eyes burning like stars going nova. Vorsh noticed too late. He turned, still holding Marcus, and his face went pale. What in the frozen hells is? He did not get to finish. Mr. Tibbs moved faster than anything that size should move. 1 second he was across the commons, the next he was on Vorsh, tearing the Zethian's arm off at the shoulder. Literally. Just ripped it clean off. Vorsh screamed and dropped Marcus. The kid hit the floor gasping for air. Mr. Tibbs pressed his advantage, driving Vorsh backward, claws rending through cybernetic armor like it was made of paper. Blood sprayed across the commons floor. "Marcus," I shouted. "Call him off." The kid was still gasping, trying to get air back into his lungs. Mr. Tibbs had Vorsh on the ground now, going for his throat. I did something incredibly stupid. I ran forward, scooped Marcus up in my arms, and carried him closer to the fight. "Tell him to stop," I said. Marcus, cradled against my chest plates, coughed hard. Then, with a voice like broken glass, he whispered, "Tibbs, stop. He is done." The creature froze instantly. Its jaws were centimeters from Vorsh's throat. The Zethian had lost consciousness from blood loss and shock. "Come here," Marcus whispered. "Please." Mr. Tibbs released Vorsh and bounded over to us. As he approached, he shrank back down, transforming back into a stuffed animal by the time he reached Marcus's outstretched hands. The kid hugged him close, still coughing. "Good boy," he whispered. "You saved me. Such a good boy." Medical teams rushed in to stabilize Vorsh. He would survive, minus an arm, but his career as a violent criminal was effectively over. I carried Marcus to the medical bay to get checked out. His throat was badly bruised, but he would be fine. As I sat with him while the medical staff worked, he looked up at me with those big eyes. "Mr. Vorkath, why do people always test Mr. Tibbs?" I keep warning them. Every single time. "Because you look harmless, kid. Both of you. Beings see what they want to see. That is silly. Dad always said, do not judge something by how it looks. Judge it by what it does when pushed into a corner." Smart dad. "What happened to your parents, Marcus?" His expression fell. "They died. When the station exploded, they were trying to help other people evacuate. The coalition found me after, floating in an escape pod with Mr. Tibbs. I am sorry, kid." "Me too. But at least I still have Mr. Tibbs. He keeps me safe. And I keep him safe. That is what friends do." The review board met the following week. They had analyzed every second of footage, interviewed every witness, consulted with dozens of experts. Their conclusion? Marcus was not a threat unless provoked. Mr. Tibbs was a manifestation of some kind, possibly psychic in nature, possibly something else entirely. Either way, the kid could not stay at Complex 7. They transferred him to a research facility on Sanctuary Prime, a peaceful world dedicated to studying unusual phenomena. I got reassigned back to regular duty. Last I heard, Marcus was doing well. The researchers treated him kindly, gave him proper education, let him be a kid. And Mr. Tibbs? According to reports, he remains dormant most of the time, just a stuffed animal keeping a lonely boy company. But everyone at the facility knows the rules. Be kind to Marcus, do not threaten him, and for the love of all that is holy, do not touch Mr. Tibbs. I still think about that kid sometimes, about what he represents. Humans have been part of the Galactic Coalition for 50 years now, and we still do not understand them. They are soft, yes, fragile, absolutely, but they have something we do not. Some spark of will that lets them punch above their weight class, that makes them dangerous when cornered. An 8-year-old human child brought one of the most secure facilities in the galaxy to its knees with nothing but fierce love for a stuffed animal. A warden learned the hard way that cruelty has consequences. A violent criminal lost an arm for threatening someone he perceived as weak. The galaxy calls humans the newcomers, the soft ones, the species that should not have made it past their own solar system. But I know better now. I have seen what happens when you push them too far, when you threaten what they love. Humans always warn you. They really are nice like that, but the smart beings listen. Because honey badgers, whether real or imagined, do not care about your size, your strength, or your reputation. They just do not care at all.